Hello and welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour, the weekly bridge to the future of the piano tech community. I'm David Anderson.
And I'm Ethan Janney. And we're here to ask great questions, and then we'll shut up and listen to some of the authorities, experts, and most outstanding personalities in our little world of pianos.
So, put on your best set of headphones and let's get started.
Hello. Hello, friends. Hello, piano technicians across the globe. Good to see you all. Hey, Ron, thanks for the thumbs up. Hey, John, thanks for the howdy. Oh, they got another thumbs up. All right. We're in a good mood. Oh, wow. Jim Kelly gave a thumbs up. John, you're in for a treat today. We got a lot of thumbs up. We're good spirits.
Jim, I tried to email you a link to this. I'm glad to see that you already knew about it.
Cool. Hey, it's Bill Monroe. How's it going, Bill? Good to see you. I was going to call you earlier today, so I'm glad you're here. Okay, well, we can get started, and then we'll roll into this presentation, which should be kind of interesting. Today, well, first of all, general introduction. This is Piano Tech Radio Hour, and this is a fun weekly session we have for the piano industry, both fun and serious, because we bring you, no pressure, Jonathan, some of the best content in the piano industry, the coolest folks doing interesting things, and teachers, instructors, piano store owners, industry veterans, things like that, to talk about cool stuff. And then this is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, cutting edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more about that at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. And today we have Jonathan Cleghorn. And I've been talking about you, Jonathan. You probably don't realize.
Oh, dear.
Just, the topic of my adventures in Peru has come up past few weeks for whatever reason, and we've been going through a little bit of that. So the topic of visiting you back in the day and the piano that you're working on crossed our paths. And so thought it'd be fun to bring you on to talk a little bit more specifically. People had questions about the piano, stuff like that. So so here we are. And I guess what I'll do is I'll let Jonathan give a little intro of himself, where he's at and what he's been up to. And then him and I might chit chat for a little bit, and then we're going to go into, a bit of a presentation. He's going to show us some photos and tell us a little bit about his experience with this Chickering piano and with this kind of strange brown action, or at least it was strange when he first encountered it.
Yeah.
And and then we'll take questions and comments, and feel free to throw your comments and questions in the chat, and we'll have a little fun with some conversation too. So Jonathan, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself? I'm going to spotlight our videos so that everybody can see us. But yeah, go ahead.
So I went to, I have a bachelor's in church music and a master's in music education, and then the first job offer I got when I finished my master's degree was a piano store, tuning pianos for them. I had kind of put myself through grad school as a tuner. I learned to tune in college. So that I was, when you and I interacted, was living in West Virginia. I was the field technician for a store there. 5 years fast forward, here we are. I've moved to Minnesota, where my family is originally from. And the last 3 years, I've been working in the middle of COVID, trying to start my own piano tuning business. So it was just starting to really get off the ground nicely when I got shut down for 6 months. So I've been working part-time job. Fortunately, I have a friend who will let me work for him and kind of tell him how many hours I can afford to give him and fill the rest up with pianos. So I'm in the process of becoming a full-time technician again. And doing doing pretty much everything piano related, long distance moves, obviously a bunch of tunings, shop repairs, kind of everything.
What constitutes a long distance move?
So I live about, if you are familiar with Minnesota at all, Duluth is the city at the very pointy end of Lake Superior. I live an hour north of there, and so quite a few people who live down in Minneapolis have lake cabins up here, and so I'm shuttling grand pianos back and forth between $1 million homes in Minneapolis and $1 million lake cabins up here in the playground of the rest of the state. So it's 3 to 4 hours each way.
Do people literally move them like when they spend their summer home time, like they bring it back and forth, or is it just like, oh hey, we want to move this?
It's not so much bring it back and forth as, for one reason or another, they're spending either more time up at the lake cabin or less time at the lake cabin than they used to, and so they want the piano where they're going to use it most.
Okay.
So I wish I could get work just moving pianos back in, biannual piano moves, that would be a revenue source, but
nice. Well, kudos for taking on piano moving. I always felt intimidated by that, and I just said, you know what, I'm just not going to do it.
I kind of was in the same boat for a while, so having worked at a store, I had to help them deliver their new pianos. So I kind of saw how to do it and also somehow not to do it. But I kind of got into it because there's a music festival up here that's every year they stage an opera and a concert series, and they rent a certain number of pianos, but they're doing concerts at, the local library, the local this, the local that. And so I was the only person who even knew how to move a piano around for them. So I kind of initially started doing it under protest. And then once I had all the equipment, I was like, well, I may as well keep going. And now it's actually one of the larger revenue streams I have.
Cool. Yeah, speaking of how not to do it, I actually had to recently move my piano from a condo that we're moving out of to this house that we're in. And yeah, I found this guy online. He had a lot of good reviews, and I said, okay, well, it's relatively inexpensive, but he's got a lot of good reviews. And called him up, and I didn't even get the piano out the door without banging into the walls and chipping a leg. And
yesterday,
and I was just, and he was like, we can do it. We can finish this. And I was like, if this is how far we've, he had 2 flights. He hadn't even gotten down, into this. There was 2 flights of stairs ahead of him.
No. No offense, but you're the kind of person who I look at that move and say, no.
Yeah, so I was just like,
stairs,
leave.
Catch me outside.
I said, leave. Please leave. Please leave.
Yesterday, I spent half the day doing a repair on a Charles Walter. That same idea, 2 men in a truck had moved the piano for them, and they broke the front casters out of the legs going across the door threshold.
Yeah, people are bold.
Yeah.
And after that, so I had this little, a very manageable piano to move. It's like one of these micro pianos and it only has 52 keys.
Yeah.
And I had that in the garage on the first floor. I was going from first floor to first floor, and I said, hey man, listen, I felt bad for the guy. He was like a young kid, and I just said, if you take this piano over to the other house, I'll pay you just a small amount, and we'll call it, He's like, hey, we'll come up. We can still move that. I was like, no, you're not coming back. You're never coming back.
Oh, man, I'm sorry.
Anyways, it's all right. So I just have to work. I get an opportunity to work on my lacquer repair skills now.
Always a silver lining.
There you go. Yeah, Laurel and Hardy comes to mind, said Jim Kelly. Yeah, it was a bit of a comedy of errors. So anyways, Jonathan, I heard you got some photos and a little bit of a story to tell about this piano that you worked on. We'd love to be able to share that with the folks if you want to bring it up. And
so
conversation going.
Pull up the screen share here.
Sure.
So, all right. So this was back in 2015.
I remember that
Kind
place.
of yeah, beautiful area. So the backstory to this, 2015, I was working as a full-time tech for a store on the East Coast. My uncle was the president of a Baptist seminary in Peru, teaching. They were training Peruvian pastors for churches in the country. This is way back in the Andes mountains. Musical literacy in the area is almost nil. They inherited this antique piano. They didn't know anything about it, just that it had belonged to a Catholic orphanage that went defunct back in the 60s. They were trying to start a music program as part of the seminary so they could start to like teach worship leaders and stuff. But the piano is completely unplayable. There was one guy in like within 6 hours who looked at it and said, I don't know how this piano works. It doesn't look like no normal piano. I can't do anything for it. It wouldn't play, couldn't tune it. So he contacted me to say, hey, you know, what options do I have here?
So your uncle contacted you mean, right?
My uncle contacted me, yes.
Do you remember who that guy was that looked at it?
It was a native Peruvian. I'm having issues there. Okay, is this sharing? I'm not sure. I'm not seeing the dialogue any longer. Okay, it was a native Peruvian who lived in a town like 6 hours away. He taught music at a state school, and they paid him to come out and look at it because they were trying to get it up and running so they could use it for the music program at the seminary.
Right.
And the local guy said, if you can order me this, and he had this huge list of parts from the United States, then I might be able to get it working for you. So my uncle forwarded the list to me and said, what do you think about this? And so I had him, I did a Skype session with him just to try to get some basic info, have him send me some pictures. And it was very obvious right off the bat that, okay, this is not a normal piano action. So like just ordering new weapons isn't going to fix anything. You look down in the top of the piano. Let's see, here's the piano. You look down in the top of the piano and the hammer shanks don't have any knuckles. So I posted on the guild forum to ask for advice. Initially, I was hoping to be able to replace the antique action with modern parts to make it, more long-term serviceable. And I was hoping to, go down once. Plane tickets are, $1,500, $2,000, and I was hoping to just do it once and, one fell swoop, have the piano working for them. Posted on the guild forum asking for advice. I got a very surprising amount of don't touch that with a 10-foot pole. There were some people who had helpful advice. Susan Klein and Jim Ialeggio encouraged me to give it a whirl. This I think it was Susan said, this might be an experience you'll look back with pride on your whole life. She was right. Keith Akins, I think, was the one who initially warned me, that looks an awful lot like a Brown action. I was like, what's a Brown action? So, Fred Sturm down in New Mexico, he provided me information that I could not have done the problem without. I mean, so who would know the scaling of an 1870s piano off the top of their head? Fred did. Ed Sutton warned me about these tuning pins are probably going to be tapered, and suggested the process I ended up using for swabbing each individual hole with CA glue and reusing the pins. All of them finally, yeah.
So I remember we were replacing the strings when you were there, or I helped, with a couple of them, and that was a job you were doing, and your cousin was helping you out.
Yep.
But I forget, were the strings just in horrible shape, or did you think, oh well, at least I could replace the strings. This will be like a nice piece of all the upgrade.
There's your original. These are the original strings.
Nice.
150 years of repairs. Like this one in the top left picture that's front and center, it had barely enough loop to keep the becket from just pulling out. So they weren't stable at all, and you can see the corrosion on the bass strings was really bad. So new strings were kind of a must. I wanted to do new pins, but sure enough, when I got down there, I discovered they're tapered. So that I'm not re-drilling a pin block in a third world country. Let's see. Jim Kelly gave me a lot of good information on Chickerings, and a lot of encouragement throughout the project. And then I don't remember if it was Jim or if it was Bill Shaw that put me in contact with Clark Panaccione up in Massachusetts, and this guy already had jigs to make all the brown parts.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's a score right there.
So
what was his name?
Clark. I don't know how you pronounce the last name. It looks like Panaccione. His website is mireut.com. mireut.com.
Okay.
And he still has parts for sale.
Cool.
All of them together convinced me that no, there's no way you can just do this blind in one trip. You've got to go take a survey trip first. So first trip, I went down in November 2015. The first thing I found upon arriving severely jet lagged was a piano with two legs attached, kind of leaning on a combination of the pedal lyre and the wall.
Wait a second. Why were you jet lagged? It's not that much of a time difference, is it?
It's actually the same time zone as I'm in now.
Uh-huh.
But the way the flight connections to go back to the backside worked was I spent all day flying domestic, and then my connection from Houston to Lima, I landed in Lima about 2 a.m. Then you got to go through customs. Customs was a chore because of all my specialized equipment I was bringing, and in my limited Spanish, severely limited Spanish, I had to explain to them what all this was and what was staying in the country and what wasn't. And so by the time I got to the domestic side of the Lima airport, it was about 4 a.m. and the gate didn't open till 6 a.m. So I took a nap on my suitcase for an hour and then got checked in for the hop across the mountains. Mm-hmm. Then the airport where I got picked up is about 2 hours, 2-hour bus ride. Maybe it was an hour and a half, but.
You got picked up from the airport, or you took a bus from the airport?
So the first trip I got picked up. The first trip I got picked up because I didn't know a clue about what I was doing. So since my uncle was in town, it's kind of, I live an hour out into the country now. So when I go to town, and we run all our errands and everything. So it's the same idea, he was in town, so he had all these things he needed to pick up. So I tagged along with him all day. And then finally that evening, we got back to where the piano actually was. So I hadn't slept, I had like a cat nap here and there in the last 28 hours or something.
Gotcha.
It was fun. It's an experience. It's an adventure. So
it's a lesson in patience and appreciation for now it's more common to have some of the amenities in Peru that you would have in the United States. But I remember the first time I went was probably in like 2009 or 10, and all the showers I took were cold, and so then when I came back to New York City and had a hot shower, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I don't die of pleasure every time I have this.
At my uncle's house, they have a sun tank, and if it's not sunny, then you can switch on the
electric.
Yeah, but
right?
it's an electric heater inside the shower head, and they call it the Widowmaker, because if you manage to bump the shower head while you're taking a shower, you get shocked.
Right, exactly. Although they're probably kidding around that somebody would die from it, because I don't think that could happen. But you're taking a shower and I've had it, several times. You touch the shower head in the wrong way, you get a little shock while you're taking a shower.
I'd never been in a place also where, like the airports, you had to bring your own toilet paper. That was new.
Yeah. It's fun times.
So, the first thing I did was like, well, we got to get this piano on 3 legs. And the problem was, whenever they had moved it up onto the stage, they didn't have enough manpower to hold it up and figure out how to get this. It was to me a standard leg lock, but they'd never seen it before. So here is your third world country version of a jack in the box.
Nice.
That's a car jack off my uncle's 1980s Toyota Land Cruiser, and a stack of board ends from the local sawmill. So we got it jacked up and got the leg put on. All the trap work was missing off the lyre. I didn't have a picture of that. So right off the bat, it's like, this thing is going to be a project. Doing some survey work inside. So these 2 stickers, the left side is signed T. Peterson, scale 19. And then the one on the action cradle there is signed Saint Amant 72. So the serial number range got us to between 1870 and 1875, but basing off that, when he signed that sticker, I'm saying this was an 1872 piano. Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the 5405 was just some sort of build number so they could keep all the parts together. The serial number is a completely different series. And Jim was actually able to, I believe, look these 2 men up in the old company records and find when they did work for the company.
Cool.
So let's see. Yeah, the strings were in bad condition. The tuning pins were tapered. The block was blind. I think it's called blind drilled, where the screws, the holes don't go all the way through. So tapered holes, tapered pins. And then to complicate matters, the pins were not all the same size. There were a lot. There were I think 3 different dimensions of pin. And then, it was a brown action. So the top picture is actually once I had pulled the action out and done a lot of work to it and got it all cleaned up. Kind of a clear picture of this piano's action. The bottom picture is courtesy of Susan Klein. And
now Susan Klein often joins us. I don't know if she's here today. It's too bad. But you mentioned her a couple times.
Yeah, she was one of the big helps with this project. So basically, the way a brown works, this bottom picture has a couple extra things that the one in Peru didn't have. So I think the bottom picture might be a 2nd generation brown action. But the jacks, can you see my cursor?
Yeah, we can see that.
So the jacks are mitered into the keys. Let's see. I'm gonna read this off to make sure I am saying everything right. There's a spring that attaches to the jack. You can see the cord loop there and one end of the spring, and then there's a flange here that holds the spring in place, and then the other end attaches to this other lever. And most of the time I think I've seen it called an underhammer. It kind of takes the place of the modern whipping. So the force, this end of the spring is pulling down, and this end of the spring is trying to push the underhammer up. So when you push a key down, it raises the jack. You can see really clearly where the jack interfaces with the underhammer, and then the underhammer is going to push the hammer up immediately. There's not much in the way of regulation you can do. And then the one thing you really can regulate let off. Those are traditional let-off buttons, and they're attached to a rail on the front of the action whatever word I'm looking for, the front of the action. When the jack lets off, obviously it kicks out to, in this picture, the right. It lets the underhammer fall back down, but this leather and metal tab right here catches the bottom of the jack cushion, because this the underhammer is spring loaded. It wants to go up. So if this basically acts as a catch to keep the underhammer from just flying away, and it keeps everything in mechanical lockup, so that then when you let go, it all falls back into place. So mechanically, it's fairly simple. There's only like 3 moving parts. I had to take the thing apart about 4 or 5 times before I really figured out how to regulate it, because you can't regulate it, like we would think of an action today where everything's adjustable. You want to adjust the hammer line, you do that by adjusting key height. Let off is about the same, and checking was about the same. Everything else was based off key height and spring tension. They're in a first generation Brown, which was what this piano action in Peru was. You can't adjust drop, there's no drop screws. Very mechanically simple, which means, theoretically, once it's working right, it's bulletproof, but this piano, this action had issues. Primary problems with it were kind of twofold. First of all, the spring tension on these springs was just insanely high. We spent probably 6 hours massaging spring tensions, because there's this very narrow sweet spot between either it won't play or it plays at fortissimo, and now the jack won't reset. So you got to find that really narrow sweet spot in the jack, in the spring tension, and that's a huge part of actually making the action work. The other problem was the key height was whacked out. So this is what we found when we pulled the keys off. You can see here are your original paper punchings. The black is your original felt cushion.
That's a mess.
Yeah, they had been raised something like a ½ inch, just by adding felt and adding felt and adding felt. They had been raised so far. I actually, someone at some point had taken this let-off rail here and had raised the let-off rail a ½ inch, so that the piano would actually still, like, they had raised the piano so high that the keys were letting off before hammer blow. So somebody went back and reverse engineered it even worse. So we pulled all of that out, got it back to an approximation of the original key height, moved the let-off rail back down to its original holes, and lo and behold, the action began to play. So this was in the middle of massaging spring tensions. Here's where so let's see. Obviously, you have your keys, balance rail. This first rail is the let-off rail, and you can see where there's screws attaching it to the different action posts. This is after we had lowered it back down. This top section here is where the hammer rail screws into. And then if you take off the hammers, this is what you're left with. You've got your jacks and your underhammers. And then if you manually trip the jack forward far enough, the little catch pieces here let go of the felt on the back of the jack, and the underhammer pops up. And then that's how you access the springs in the middle. So this is in the middle of massaging spring tensions to get it into the sweet spot. Let's see. Interior reaction with the hammers off. So at this point, this was about 3 days in, I had a fairly good grasp of how the mechanics worked. I was working on fine regulation. So basically the first trip ended up being, I spent 5 days. I think I was there for a week. This is coming up on 6 years ago, and you know, a lot has happened since then, so I'm a little fuzzy on a few of the details. I apologize. But I think I was there for a week. About 5 days in, we had we had taken the action apart at least once a day. And every time we took it apart, we would fix another thing and figure out how something else worked. So at this point, we were doing fine regulation. And then the last full day, and even more, the last day and a half, I think, I just spent taking measurements and taking notes. Measured everything from the string scale, which, so Chickering, apparently back in the day, and I was warned of this by Jim and Fred and several other people, Chickering never did things the same way 3 days in a row. They were always experimenting. So this was a scale 19 piano, and Fred gave me the scaling for a scale 19. So I go down and found out that actually this is completely different numbers stamped on the plate. So measured the new scaling.
So they were actually on the plate, but they were different numbers than the ones that.
Yeah, they were stamped on the plate like Steinway does. But what was stamped on the plate didn't match up with the classic scale 19 numbers that Fred had sent me.
Got it.
So, you know, because Chickering. It's Thursday, let's do something different. And I was measuring everything down to the length and the width and the taper of that little wood piece that took the place of the knuckle on the end of the shank. So lots and lots and lots and lots of measurements. But at the end of the week, put it back all together, and for the first time in nobody knew how long, it would actually play like a piano.
Nice.
Still sounded like trash, still was bordering on untunable, but it was actually, you know, you could push a key and something would happen. So that was
that part, right, step by step.
Yeah.
There's a question here. There's a question here from Chuck, by the way. Did many spring hook loops break as you were adjusting the springs?
Surprisingly, no. I went with a whole, you know, big length of what did he say? A whole big length of the waxed thread for making spring loops. I think I only had to make 3 or 4. This area is it's at 10,000 feet in the Andes. Those mountains that were in the opening picture are about 12,000 feet, and they're the foothills. So imagine climbing to the top of, it's higher than anything on the East Coast. You know, imagine climbing to the top of any mountain in the Grand Tetons, and then looking up and see a taller range of mountains behind you. That's where this is. They had me play soccer one night, and man, after about 3 minutes of running at 10,000 feet elevation, this out of shape American was just dead. But that high elevation, it's actually very dry, and they did not have to deal with rot problems at all. And they were far enough from the jungle that they did not have major insect problems either. So I was actually very surprised. I went expecting to find, you know, the woods just deteriorated like horrible and all the loops are rotted out. And surprisingly, no, I really didn't have to do anything as far as replacing string loops or just a few. Let's see. So that was the end of the survey trip. So the second trip, I spent nice sweater.
I still have that sweater, and I was just wearing it this weekend when I went to New York.
That's
But it
awesome.
does start. It's hard to. That is baby alpaca. It's one of the
Ooh,
nicer sweaters you can get there. But
yeah.
man, it's hard to take care of. And it's got holes. It's got these little holes that have started to develop, and
Yup.
you'll pull a thread here and there. And um, anyways, I wish I had four of those because it is a nice sweater.
I got some alpaca stuff when I was there, and I actually wasn't like too thrilled with it because it was really itchy for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just too picky, I guess. As like wearing a t-shirt under it for like a second layer, yeah, it's amazing because it's really fluffy. So I spent 3 months talking to people, ordering parts. I sent all my measurements into Clark, and he came back with, "Hey, I already have those." Some of our times, our measurements were off by 1/10 of a millimeter. Like I had said 6.7, and his jigs were 6.6. We figured, that's within factory tolerance. Who cares? So yeah, 3 months talking to industry people, including this random off the cuff email the day before I left. A technician friend of mine told me he had read in a blog post about another technician who was down in Peru working and might be down there at the same time as I was. So I was like, oh, hey, cool, I'll send him an email. So I left back to the Andes with a suitcase full of piano parts. One of my big concerns for this trip was either losing my luggage or having the TSA get in there and blow it up. So I don't know if it did any good or anything, but I had everything labeled. You can see down in the bottom here,
That's
parts in
smart.
sequence, do not reorder.
Yeah.
And then I scheduled a really long layover between my U.S. domestic and my international flight. The worst thing in the world would be to go down for 2 weeks and spend the first 5 days of it not having the stuff I needed to put on the piano. And then I tried to read up on flying with chemicals and glue. So I brought, you can see, 2 different thicknesses of CA glue, a full thing of CLP, and a jug of rats. Piano Tech used to sell it, and they've replaced it with PVCE glue. So, to the best of my research, it was legal to fly with them, but I included the MSDS sheets with the pertinent pages highlighted, just in case.
Wow. That's sharp. Yeah, because that would suck. I'm also curious to hear, this is what would happen to me. I would bring all this stuff there, and then, there'd be one key thing that I forgot, right?
I started my list when I was there the first time. I started it in a notebook, and I kept adding to it and double checking it and triple checking it and adding to it, and I had worn those notebook pages out by the time I flew down the second time, but everything was there. Just as an aside, if you ever fly with center pins and you put them in one of those like 14-day pill containers to organize them, don't trust the container to not come unsnapped in your suitcase.
Yeah, you got to put a rubber band around it and put the whole thing in a Ziploc bag.
I duct taped it on the way back.
Yeah, there you
on
go.
the way there, it was a good thing I had brought 2 micrometers with me, because one of my cousins and I, the first thing we did was spend 3 hours miking center pins to reorganize them because they had blown up all over the suitcase.
Ugh.
So,
Jim Kelly sent a message here. It came in me private. I'll post it here. It says, Ichabod Washburn in Worcester, maybe that's how you say it, made the early strings for Jonas Chickering. This particular piano was made in Boston at 791 Tremont Street, which was built in 1854. Jonas died in December, and I think the actual building might have been built in 1854. Jonas died in December of 1853, so never worked at the factory. C. Fred Chickering was a scale designer. Company had an in-house test lab and machine shop, but no foundry. Plates were made in South Boston and Bridgewater. Oh, thanks for that.
And I believe Jim at some point was able to access the sales records to this, because we were trying to figure out how did a 7.6 grand end up in an orphanage on the backside of the Andes Mountains in the 1960s. And all he could find was it was sold from the Chickering factory to a sea captain in Boston. And from there on, it's just conjecture. So we figured, the captain must have had a sideline where, he'd take this piano around around Cape Horn, because the Panama Canal didn't exist at that point, and sell it somewhere on the West Coast, either the West Coast of South America or, at this point, the gold rush in California had kind of petered out, but there was plenty of money on the California coast. So we were unable to connect the dots between a ship captain in Boston and a Catholic orphanage in the Andes Mountains. But
yeah, I remember hearing, when I would, especially these German pianists that came over from Europe, somebody was telling me, wealthy people would just go over to Europe, they'd make a trip, and they just buy a bunch of stuff. They'd buy a piano, they'd buy a bunch of furniture. It's kind of like when people come into New York for a week and go shopping, in the fashion district or something like that. And then go home with a bunch of artifacts and things like that. So,
and I guess back then there weren't all the strict importation laws like there are now. So, you could actually do that.
Right.
That makes sense. Yeah.
All right. So you got it all there safely. You got all these parts there safely.
It all got there safely. Let's see which slide. So for this trip, I was very fortunate. I was able to draft help. The two people, I'm the guy in the white shirt. The two people working with me are my cousins. They were both pianists. They were both really good at following directions. So there was no way I could have got this done without their help. Almost as soon as we arrived, it was another one of those I've been up for 24 hours deals, but as soon as we arrived, we started taking the strings off. It was complicated by the fact that with different dimensioned tuning pins, we had to keep them all in sequence. So as we were taking them out, we were marking boxes and stabbing them into cardboard boxes to keep them in sequence. And one box I forgot to mark which side was bass, which side was treble, and I started on the wrong end, and it was obvious very quickly because suddenly a bunch of pins wouldn't hold torque. So I had to go back and started from the wrong end. Let's see. So we weren't going to pull the plate. We just did not have the facilities to do it. There were some soundboard cracks that I wanted to address while I was there. They weren't bad. So here's where I experienced my first third world limitation. I had brought thick and thin CA, but the local hardware store, you walk into this place and there's a counter where you ask the guy for what you want, and he starts digging through drawers and shelves to see if he has it. So nobody had epoxy. So I figured, well, if we can swab the pin block holes with CA, and if CA works to fix pin block cracks, it can at least not do any harm on these soundboard cracks, right? So I wicked in thin CA to penetrate down into the crack, and then a cap of thick CA to fill the gap on top. And then we sanded it smooth with the rest of the board So the picture on the right is after we were done sanding the board, and you can see the dark marks that were left by the CA glue. It's not a repair I'd recommend in the States, but a fair bit of this piano became, well, you do the best you can with what you've got. So once we had the board sanded down, we put on 2 coats of varnish. Why varnish? Because that's what the guy at the hardware store had. He didn't have lacquer. He didn't have a prime, here in the States we can order from any number of, woodworking catalogs, and you can get vinyl base and instrument lacquer. Well, nope, the guy said, all I've got is varnish. Here, I've got a can of it. And we said, well, that's better than nothing. And then you'll also notice this clear bottle on the bottom right corner. That's benzene. It's a fantastic solvent. It's also regulated in the US as a carcinogen, but you can buy it by the bottle down there.
Yeah, there are things that you can buy down there too, just to make it clear, that are surprising. Like when I was staying at an Airbnb, they had just a blender, and I accidentally dropped the glass, container part of it on the ground. And so that we went to this area of the city where they had some, interesting enough, they had literally a store that was basically dedicated to like blenders and just a few other appliances. It's like a 10 by 10 foot little,
little shop
stall in the market.
Yeah.
And not only did he have the blender model that I needed, he had just the glass part he could sell.
Nice.
And you can buy the parts to make your own shoes in the local market. It's really interesting, the things that you can buy, as well as the things that you can't find.
You can go to the drugstore and buy antibiotics over the counter.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of, but if you need surgery, so like just before I got there, my uncle, he was involved in a construction accident and he tore a tendon in his hand. So before they would do the surgery to fix it, he had to pay cash up front.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's different. There's just, it's not worse, it's not better, it's just different. There are some aspects of it where I go, man, I wish we could do that in the States.
Right.
And then so yeah, we got the soundboard. So as we're working on the piano, there were only certain hours in the day where the school wasn't using the auditorium. It was like from 10 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. They weren't using the auditorium, and then they had classes in there in the morning and in the evenings. So we took the piano out, and my uncle's house is 2 miles is 2 miles out of town, kind of up the side of the hill some. So there's not really much in the way of what we would think of like, motorized transport. Most people don't have cars. So we walked the action most of the way there. If you want to get a lot of strange looks, get 2 very white Americans carrying a piano action on their heads through the middle of a third world, a town in third world South America. We got a lot of very like, what in the world are these crazy Americans doing type looks.
I bet.
And so, of course, halfway to his house, it started to rain. You can see the nice rainbow there. We're like, oh, that's really pretty. And then here comes the rain. So we sacrificed our jackets to keep the action dry. Finally, we ran into a torito. And Ethan, you saw these all over the place, I'm sure.
They're very cool. Actually, this one's a very modest one. A lot of times they decorate them in the coolest, colors and designs and stuff like that.
Yeah. This Urubamba, the town this was in, they kind of had 2 different styles. They had the moto taxi, which was like an open air version, and then this like the torito where it's actually enclosed. But they're basically both of them like it's a motorized tricycle. They're very, very, very fuel efficient. They're very, very, very loud, and they're all over the place. So
I wish we had those in the States just because they're fun.
I know. I know. Just be able to zip out to the mailbox on one of those things. So the exchange rate in Peru when I was there was about $3.50 US to 1 Peruvian sol. So a 15-minute motor taxi ride, or from one end of town to the other, would cost you like $1. Not bad for taxi rates, huh? This guy scalped us. He charged us an extra $1 just because we put the piano action in there. But it was raining. I wasn't about to argue with him. So once we had the action at my uncle's house, we took over the kitchen table for 4 days. We hung new hammers and rebushed the keys. And the reason for new shanks, so new flanges, new shanks, new hammers. The old hammers, just 150 years of wear, they were down to the wood moldings on quite a bit of the treble end. Some of the ones which, they'd been wobbling for 50 years had been just worn flat. So it needed new hammers, but I was concerned about the integrity of the old wood shanks because quite a few of them had been broken and re-glued, and you see where they glued the two pieces together with fish glue or horse glue and then wrapped string around it the old-fashioned way. So I was concerned that if I started to try to pop the old hammerheads off the old shanks, I'd end up with a bunch of broken shanks. So new shanks just to uncomplicate matters.
And Dorothy asked what type of hammers? Where did you get them?
These were custom made for me by Ray Negron at Ronson. He used like the lightest weight bacon felt he had. I talked over with him. I had weighed some of the hammers from the original piano, so I was able to give him those weights, like the A0 piano weighed so many grams. And so then he went in and was like, well, the best fit for you is going to be, and it ended up being like, I don't know if they were 14, they may have even been like 12-pound bacon felts. But so I had those custom made. The top flanges and hammer shanks were made for me by Clark. His prices were astoundingly reasonable. I went into it expecting to pay probably 3 times what he charged me to make these custom hammer shanks.
Cool.
Let's see. So another, well, it's what we've got limitation was I went to the hardware store in town and I asked, do you have hide glue? And he said, yes. And he handed me this block that was about 12 by 6 by 3/4 of an inch. And I was like, what's this? That's hide glue. You have to pulverize it yourself and prep it yourself. I did not have any way to do that. So I went with the only other glue he had, which was standard white wood glue. Not a fan of it because it's not reversible, but it's what we had. It'll get them another 60 years on the piano, and by that time I'll be in a retirement home anyway, so who cares, right? Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about this over and over again. I mean, there's so much more you could have done for the piano, and it would have been really cool to come and just make it into the most. I mean, this could have become some sort of magical thing, but it's like, it's also, you have to remember, it would have remained useless if you didn't do anything, and what a cool learning opportunity that also served to help.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The school was on a tight budget. I was providing a lot of it free of charge. And it basically just boiled down to practicality. If this had been in the States, I would have done a much more historical preservation oriented job on this. But the school doesn't need a museum piece. The school just needed a piano that worked. So we did the best we had with what we had. We did the best we could with what we had. So this was my workstation for the mornings and evenings for a week. My poor family I was staying with lost the use of their kitchen table. We ate lunch. We ate dinner in the living room. By the time you were there, Ethan, do you remember, was the piano action still in the house, or had we moved it back?
Yeah, it was there. I have a ton of pictures actually from that visit. We probably won't have time to share them today. Well, how are you doing on your presentation? Is there more? Is there a lot more to it? Should we have you back to finish, or? Okay, all right.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not looking at. Oh wow.
I'll see if I could share with you these pictures. You can, if you ever want to use them or
Yeah.
something. I have a ton. It's
So,
got some videos even.
yeah, there's the workstation. At that point, it looks like we're getting about close. So we went to rebush the keys because they had a lot of side-to-side play. Ran into our next problem. These keys had way smaller, so they were standard 146 American dimension balance rail pins, and front rail pins, but they were way smaller than normal holes, way shorter than normal. So I had brought a set of, the spur lock rebushing jigs. They wouldn't fit.
Oh,
So
man.
I start going, oh no, now what are we gonna do? So third world solution, popsicle sticks. We cut popsicle sticks to size. I crushed them down with needle nose pliers and micrometered them to make sure they were approximately the correct size, and it worked. Again, I wouldn't do that in the States, but I didn't have the facilities to machine down the calls, so popsicle sticks to the rescue. At this point, so this is about, I think, where it was when you came in, right? It had the strings about halfway on.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So this work was all going on contemporaneously. We'd work on the string sum and the action sum every day. So then here's the piano. I don't have a lot of pictures from while I was stringing, but here it is, fully strung. Let me see here. Yeah, fully strung. Really, the only difference, I brought all my stringing tools, so stringing a piano there wasn't any different than stringing a piano here, except for the tapered pins, and reusing the pin block. So what I ended up doing was a technique that was suggested by Ed Sutton. Take low viscosity CA and Q-tips, and before you drive each pin in, swab the hole with a Q-tip dipped in CA. The theory being it'll soak in, it'll help reinforce the wood fibers, it will maybe make the hole 1/1000th of an inch smaller. It did actually significantly increase the torque on the pins once I had restrung everything. So the pin torque felt really good. It wasn't snappy. And it didn't, they were holding pretty well. It was nice and tight. I was very pleased with the results. So if you ever have to work on a piano with tapered tuning pins and re-drilling is not an option, keep that in your back pocket. I don't know that it would be my first choice, but in this situation, it worked. So then, 7 to 10 tunings later, she was ready to go. And then I do have a video. I know we're like at an hour already. It's like a 2.5 minute video of it being played in the concert that happened at the end of the week.
Yeah, let's check it out, and then we'll call.
Oh yeah, the tonal results. So it was not a powerful modern sound with a lot of projection. Just the nature of the action, the natures of the hammers. It was a really nice, clear texture. It wasn't muddy. It didn't have the really brightness of a Yamaha, or it also didn't have kind of the some Steinways I feel like tend to get a bit muddy. It was nice and clear without being overly bright. There was a lot of dynamic variation available in mezzo piano, mezzo forte, up into forte. It just didn't, so you could be so nuanced with it. It was I would love to have this piano in my living room, honestly, because you can be so expressive in the mid ranges. Very, very well suited for classical, for early romantic music. Yeah, I was happy, very happy with how it turned out, and I'd love to have the piano up here. So here's the video going through.
Yep, you can hear it.
How do I end this? Okay, so stop screen share.
Not bad. That sounds pretty good.
Beautiful. I'm envious.
Very cool. Well, thank you for taking us through all that. Very interesting story, and both the narrative and the piano. And I think people really had fun checking this out. So appreciate you coming in and doing it. Yeah, and I will share with you, I do have a ton of photos. So I've got some photos of the stringing.
Great.
I actually even have a video here of you swabbing the tuning pin holes here, I see. Like
Judy asked, did I put them in while the glue was wet, or did I assume by kick it she means use the quick dry on it. I didn't pay attention. I didn't use an accelerator. But I honestly don't remember. I think I would swab 3 or 4 at a time and then string them and then swab 3 or 4 more. I didn't do it on purpose any certain way.
Here in the video I'm watching, I would share it if we had time. It's on my phone over here. I at least see you doing, you're taking the Q-tip and you're putting in about like 3, 4, at least maybe 5, 6 holes, right, all at one time. And then that's what I have. So you at least did that many at once before. So I'm assuming, you couldn't really get that many tuning pins in right away,
No.
right? If you were concerned at getting it in wet, you probably would have just done one and put the tuning pin
if I'm
in.
remembering the way Ed suggested it, he said swab it and give it a little bit to let it at least start to set up in the hole before I introduce the pin. That would be an interesting experiment to do to see if it made any difference.
Right,
But,
totally.
Yeah, so I know we're at an hour. If people have questions, I'm willing to stick around for a bit longer.
Yeah, we can if people want to. We typically end close to on time, but yeah, did anybody have any questions, comments, anything they want to
Jim's been bugging me to do this for 5 years.
Oh yeah, to do it with us or just
to do
in
a
general?
presentation on it.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad we got you. We got it taken care of. Jim can finally rest. He finally take a nap on that one.
So
cool. So let's see here. Yeah, no, we can call it for the day.
Great.
If we want to bring you back for questions or something another day, I think we can.
Sounds good.
But you did a pretty good job squeezing everything in. And sounds good. So we'll be back again next week. Maybe we'll have another opportunity to bring you in for something else. But
fantastic.
But that was great. Really appreciate you pulling it together.
Yeah, no
I know.
I'm glad I could do it.
You had to probably take a little time out of your schedule to get things together. So appreciate
Glad
that.
I could do it.
And yes, Jim. Now you can stop bugging Jonathan as much. Maybe start begging for a revised. Maybe you have to write
expanded edition.
Write a book about it.
Oh, I'm bad at writing.
But yeah, also thanks to everyone who had your facts and stuff. Very interesting. I didn't realize folks had access in the group had so much access to information about this piano. So that was cool too. All right. Well, we'll sign off and we'll see everybody next week. Next week I will be traveling in Miami, Florida. But I'll update you in emails about what the topic will be, and I should be able to make the session. I organize my travels in order to be able to be here again. So we'll see you again next week. Catch y'all later.
Thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time. Remember that you can catch us live online every Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.
That's right. Go to pianotechradio.com to register so you can interact live and ask questions of our guests.
See you next week.